It's time for the Unexplained News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the Unexplained News podcast, Margie K.
Good evening and welcome to Unexplained News. I'm your host, Margie K, and we are here every Friday evening right here on the KUNX Digital Broadcasting Network. Thank you for joining me this evening. We have a special show for you tonight. I've got a longtime friend of mine coming on this evening. He's a UFO researcher, a published author, and he's one of the original founders of the Museum of the Unexplained in Reed Spring, Missouri. He first heard about the Bob White UFO object in 1995, and since then has been doing research, gotten several people involved, testing labs involved, and this is just an amazing story. So, welcome to the program, Larry Cekander.
Thank you very much, Margie. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for joining me this evening. We actually first published an article about the Bob White object in Unexplained News magazine in 2012. 2012. And so, yeah, I've got the picture of the front of that magazine and with Bob on it holding the object. So let's go back to the beginning. Tell us about Bob and how he found this.
Well, Bob was a musician, entertainer, stuntman in the movies, and his band was going to open a new club that had been redone in Denver, Colorado. And they were scheduled to play the weekend, and the club wasn't done yet. So they said it'd be at least 4 days, so he decided to go down to Las Vegas. He'd met a young lady in the bar down there, and they decided she was going to Vegas, so there was a free ride for him. They took off and went to Vegas. On the way down there between Salida, Colorado, and Utah State line on over Route 6, the lady that was driving saw this giant ball of light on the ground in front of them on the left-hand side of the road. And Bob was asleep. She woke him up, said, "There's something up there." He looked, he said, "Well, I think that's just a mining light at night." They used big halogen lights back then. So he went back to sleep. About 10 minutes later, she got close. She said, "That's not a mining light." Anyway, they woke up. He looked at it. They coasted up on the light with the engine off. He got out of the vehicle, and he walked in front of the vehicle, looking at it, said it had to shade his eyes. It was so bright.
Wow.
He turned the headlights on him, and as soon as that happened, this light shot into the sky, and he described it as a blink of an eye. It went from the ground to thousands of feet into the air. And there was an explosion, a flash, or something. Anyway, there was a bright light in the sky, and this object came back at him. Force towards it, because if it had just dropped off to whatever it hit, it would have been miles and miles from it. But this came back under its own power, or was focused anyway, or it shot back. He saw where it landed, followed the groove in the ground, and that's how he got the object. And he kept it hid for 10 years because he was still in the movies, and the last thing he wanted to do, trying to play in movies in L.A. was say, "Well, I had a UFO encounter." After he retired, he brought the object out, and the first time it was shown was in Eureka Springs in 1997. And there wasn't no big flap about it. People talked about it a little bit, and that was it. And ever since then, we've been at it, trying to prove what this thing is or isn't. We don't, I'll be the first one to tell you, I have no idea what it is, other than the fact that it's extraterrestrial in origin. We know that from testing. It has extraterrestrial signatures in the object. There's strontium, amorphous peak in the object that was discovered by Los Alamos and National Institute for Discovery Science back in the 90s, but they failed to mention that. And we never found out until 2009 that the object had this amorphous peak in it, and that's an unknown entity in the object, in aluminum especially. We did not have that technology, and we're just barely getting into it now.
So, are you saying there's an unknown chemical factor to this?
Yes, well, it's not an unknown chemical. It's a peak. It's a crystalline structure that was formed in this object from rapid heating and rapid cooling. Okay. And that makes sense because we know it was ejected under force from some kind of machine. That's the only way it could have been formed in the teardrop shape that it has with the chads on the outside of the little pin feather look that it has all the way down. Ablation layering is what it's called.
So is this is it molten? Is it molten metal?
It was. It had to be. It was ejected in a molten state under high pressure in a vacuum condition, extremely cold. That's the only way you could get that Chad effect. It was still probably molten inside as the crust formed on the outside. And it came back into the atmosphere. You can't form this in an oxygen environment and make it look the way it does. Now, a lot of people, and anybody that sees a picture of it, say, oh, that's from a machine shop and underneath a grinding wheel. Well, I hate to burst everybody's bubble, but you cannot grind aluminum and get it to melt because aluminum is a soft, porous metal, and they can't get enough friction or force or speed on the wheel to get it to melt. It will turn to dust. And you get a nice pile underneath the wheel that looks a lot like Bob's object, but you can't pick it up. You can't make it ring. You can't hit it with a hammer. You know, this thing is hard. And we now know that my friend that has teamed up with me, Benny Foggins, has a piece of metal that is almost exactly the main formation as Bob's, other than he has 43 elements in his. I only have 33 in Bob's identified. And he has a definite strontium, he has a definite extraterrestrial signature in his also in strontium. Isotope read. Isotopes don't lie. They're either on Earth or off Earth. There's no in between. You're pregnant or you're not.
It's a good analogy.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, you
Now, when Bob first saw the craft, we'll call it the craft, was there any structure to it, or was he just totally blinded by the light?
He was blinded by the light. Now, we went out there in 2003. We did a TV show for Plain TV in England. A guy by the name of Jane Golden was the presenter. And we went to the spot where this happened. Right? He knew exactly where it happened. We took soil samples of where this happened. And the soil samples, we got a glass material at the bottom of this hill that we were standing on when we pulled the samples up were from extreme heat. The only way you could have got that sand to solidify in a glass-like structure is extreme heat.
Yes.
So whatever was sitting there, and stuff is still there at 2000, when was it? Let's see, 2010. I had a lady from MUFON that went out there and picked up some more samples. I picked up samples in '06, and I have all that stuff. We had tests run on that stuff. There's gamma, beta, fast radiation, neutron readings in that soil samples. It's not it's not hazardous, but it's there. And a gamma reading shouldn't be there. A fast neutron reading should not be anywhere near it. Because the only place you get fast neutron readings is a nuclear explosion, a nuclear power plant, or cosmic radiation. Now, since Bob and me don't have parts falling off of us at that time, it obviously was not from a bomb or nuclear plant. It had to be cosmic radiation.
Mm-hmm.
And the bombardment of cosmic radiation, that's why they take airplanes out of service after 30 years as passenger planes, because they are bombarded by cosmic radiation at the high altitudes. And when that happens, the plane is irradiated, and it finally gets to a point after a while that you cannot safely put passengers in that plane to turn them into cargo planes. Yeah.
Oh.
So, a lot of people don't realize that.
No.
The radiation, the radiation, that comes from the sun is nuclear in origin. You're having all kinds of explosions on the
Right.
the sun all the time. That's what keeps us warm, except it's not working today.
Not in Missouri, it's not.
No, it sure ain't. That's for sure. But I can't complain, but we've had some good weather this year.
That's
all
true.
Right. Go ahead. Ask me some more stuff. It's hard for me to put this all together. I've been at this so long now.
Yeah, you have.
I got to be reminded of stuff, to talk about it.
Well, for you, it has been a very long and tedious process. Who else who have you sent samples to? Who has taken samples and who has done testing?
Okay, the first testing was done at the National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDS, and Robert Bigelow, and they did tests at the New Mexico State Mines and Minerals in Albuquerque, and they did a basic elemental. They found 22 elements in it at that basic elemental reading, and tried to compare it, say it was close to what's known as a 360 aluminum alloy, which is like a engine block on a Briggs & Stratton engine. It's pretty hard, very resilient, and will take a beating and not melt. It's used for a lot of engineering in that particular aluminum, except for the fact that doesn't fit because there's only 9 elements involved in a 360 aluminum alloy. At that time, we had 22 identified after their first test.
Oh boy.
So that's like taking an orange and an apple and making grape juice. It don't work.
Mm-hmm.
The scenario don't fit. They also discovered that amorphous peak I was talking about in their X-ray diffraction test. Los Alamos was the next one, and that was because of a television show that Leonard Nimoy used to host. What the heck was that? Now, Unsolved Mysteries, I believe it was. And they contacted Bob and wanted to do a show on him because of the object. They had found out about it somehow or another. So he flew out to Los Alamos, got on the property at Los Alamos with this object, and they cut the bottom piece off in their laboratory because they said they couldn't get the whole object in their scanning electron microscope to do any tests. So he let them cut the bottom off. A few weeks later, Bob called him up. He hadn't heard anything. A guy by the name of Dr. Reiswick, who had been brought in specially to test the object, answered the phone. Bob had his personal number. He answered the phone. He says, "Mr. White, this has been looking for this all my life. It is definitely extraterrestrial in origin."
Wow.
Now, that scientist said that. Of course, he denied that later. but he was so excited at the time that he blurted it out, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob passed 4 polygraph tests, but he said that, you know, and now he's dead. Of course, Dr. Rice now. In fact, just about everybody did that's been involved in this, including Bob. I think Bob was killed myself.
You do?
Because he was, yes, I do. Well, I certainly do.
Okay, well, let's delve into that for a minute. What were the circumstances around his death?
Okay, he had gone for stents in Barnes Hospital in St. Louis. I had taken him over there, or they had ambulanced him over there, and I stayed in touch with him, and he put the stents in, got him cooking pretty good. I called me up. I went over and picked him up the next day. And on the way home, we stopped at the Catfish House in Lebanon, Missouri, had a big old meal. He was supposed to start therapy the next morning for rehabilitation surgery therapy. He drove a little tracker around, a little 85 tracker. Of course, those are not exactly extremely hot rod machines. The pictures that I have from the accident shows that the back spare tire was shoved in at the back, and right at the bumper height on the driver's side, the door was shoved in. He went off the road. He went off the road down to its ditch. Went on its side. He come back up out of the ditch, hit the road on the side. He was thrown from the vehicle, and he lasted 7 days after that. He was one of the toughest men I ever met. He may have been little in stature, but boy, he was tough. I mean, he was tough. And he boxed in the Navy. He's like me. He has worked physically hard all his life. I was a mechanic 50 years. And like I say, I'm following part of the scenes, and I'm still out there doing it every day. You know, like I say, I barely walk now. But I'm still out there in that vehicle every day, scrapping cars. You know, and
so, do you think that the you said that the spare tire was smashed into the vehicle? Do you think something hit him from behind?
I think he was hit by the side and behind at the same time.
Oh, wow.
That's what I think. I've got pictures of the vehicle. I'll send them to you.
Was there any surveillance of you or Bob prior to this incident that you know of?
Yeah, we had people come in. The museum was opened, and I know for a fact, as far as my website that I had up with all the information on it, that the NSA was following us, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, because I had backtrackers on my website, and I could tell who was visiting that website, who wasn't. A lot of strange hits, a lot of strange visitors. And then I remember one day we had 2 guys come in. They could have been straight out of the movie Men in Black, I guarantee it. They looked just that way.
You mean they were wearing black suits?
Yeah, I mean, they could have been straight out of the Men in Black office.
Oh my goodness!
And we had a lot of military people show up there in uniform. But usually there weren't a lot of captains or colonels or generals running around, but we had a lot of master chiefs from the Navy come in, and the Navy really followed us out of Washington. Naval surveillance, they followed it big time.
Well,
there's so much stuff that's happened that there's no explanation. We had voice disappear from a TV interview we did out in Roswell, New Mexico at the UFO Museum. It was on that night at 10 o'clock when Bob had done the interview during the day. We got a copy of that tape to keep in our archives. We got the picture back, no video on the picture.
Mm-hmm.
No, we had Los Alamos tape sent to a producer in L.A., When the package got there, the package was opened, the tape was gone, and that was FedEx. And I still got all that stuff sitting up there on the shelf. And I got Bigelow's stuff, his address still here. I just found it the other day, where Bigelow sent samples back from their testing, with his actual name on the envelope. But they lied on their testing. Los Alamos lied on their testing. Los Alamos stole a piece of the object. We could prove that from pictures. The Polaroids that they shot, that Bob got a hold of 6 Polaroids. And when you match the old piece that they cut off to the new piece, there's about 1/8 of an inch that don't match. And they used a cutoff saw with a like a jeweler's blade on it. Very, very thin blade. So there would have been a little bit missing, but not 1/8 of an inch. And they kept that piece.
Yeah, obviously they wanted to keep it for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were very interested only in the bottom part of the object, not the pin, not the top part. And of course, that's the end that says exposed X-ray dental film in a laser type image. We had, I don't know if you remember Dr. Gibbons, Dr. Gibbons, Robert Gibbons. He was the director of the museum.
Oh, yes.
And Dr. Gibbons was a laser scientist for NASA. Me and Bob didn't get along good, but he was a smart man. And he did laser testing on that, and he did X-ray testing on that object, and he got 4 exposures off the bottom of that object. There shouldn't be exposure, radiation, an X-ray exposure. It shouldn't have done that. There's nothing in that object, according to the testing where it has been identified, that would shoot an image onto an X-ray and not a directed image on top of that. There's 2 directed images coming out of the bottom of that object. And he said it reminded him of a laser pattern. Now, how the heck do you get a laser pattern out of a chunk of aluminum 9 inches long? You know, how do you do that? You know, and you can't, you can read an EMF meter on that object will show EMF readings coming off that object.
Yes, I tried that myself.
That shouldn't happen either.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able to get a reading off of that object.
No, and I did that myself with my own EMF when we were at a conference together.
That's right up in Kansas City, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. You came up to one of my conferences in KC a few years ago.
Yeah, no, that was what,
2010.
17, something like that. Everybody was gone, you know. Ted Phillips was there. Ted was one of your speakers.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
And you wanted me to do a little bit of a deal. Of course, I wasn't prepared, but I did it anyway. Looked like a dummy standing up there on stage.
Well, you got the point across.
St. Louis, had that guy, that black guy that had his brother had the experiences, and we took the EMF meter.
Yes, that was Kansas City.
That was the last time we seen him. He was gone. I remember that just like yesterday.
Well, I'll tell you, his is a strange story indeed. These 2 gentlemen had an extraordinary encounter in Kansas City, and they had government vehicles following us whenever we did anything on with this case. When we went to the site to inspect and we were followed. We had people listening to our conversations in restaurants, strange noises coming out of their vehicles and my vehicle. That case is one, this just reminds me that whenever you have a really good, solid case, somebody is interested and they're surveilling.
Things get strange.
Yes. And
with the information we got now over Bob's object, and then we can correlate Bob's material with the Foggins material, which was recovered in Ohio, and then we also have material recovered in Rendlesham, and all three of those cases have the same elements on base elements as Bob's object.
Oh my!
All three of them.
That is
just like what was it? Debbie's brother wrote that book about extraterrestrial highway or something like that.
Yes.
That was Debbie Ziegelmeyer's brother.
Yes,
And
Chuck Zukowski.
About the latitude of a extraterrestrial highway. If you sit there and Mark Rendlesham, along with the Ohio case with Vinny and Bob's case in Colorado, they fall right on that highway that he describes.
Well, I discovered that there are correlations with latitude and longitude a long time ago. Right. And specifically in Missouri, which is where I live, I found that 37 degrees, 38, and 39 degrees latitude, and then if you intersect that with 94 degrees longitude, at those intersections are major event locations. And so we've found that there are this type of thing is happening all over the world at latitude and longitude. This has to be something that is, we really need to investigate this further, because when you talk about ley lines and energy centers and power centers and vortexes, these seem to be correlating around these latitude and longitude intersections.
Okay, have you been paying attention to the Skinwalker Ranch stuff going on in that blind spot?
You're darn right. I watch all of them.
Okay. If you notice the Skinwalker deal, of course, that Bigelow that was involved with that for 25 years, he kept everything secret that went on there because he was hooked up with the government so tight. So nothing came out while he was in there. But now this guy's come in now, and they're finding all this stuff. I believe, from what I've been able to grab from the TV as far as their elements go, that story that they got out of the side of the cliff, they had showed a list. It was real quick, but they showed a list, and they were real interested in the gadolinium. And Bob White has got gadolinium in it.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
And then they're real interested in a couple others. I would love to compare Bob's elemental list, Benny's elemental list, and the Skinwalker Ranch elemental list from that slurry that come off of whatever they hit in there they couldn't penetrate.
Indeed.
And I would bet my pinky that it's the same.
That would definitely be something to look into. We got to take a short break right now, but hold on, folks. We've got more coming up right after this. My book, The Kansas City UFO Flaps, covers cases that have occurred in Kansas City over the years. Kansas City has long been a UFO hotspot since before the year 1900. I cover many of these cases, starting with the airships in 1897. I cover a lot of cases and speak with actual witnesses. You'll see photos of UFOs and find out why this may be happening in Kansas City, and what is creating portals that could create interdimensional openings. Read about the events that we've held in Kansas City to discuss this and more. Visit unexmedia.com for more information. The book is available at Amazon. And we're back with NX News. I'm your host, Margie K., and my guest this evening is Larry Cekander with the Museum of the Unexplained and the Bob White UFO object is what we're talking about this evening. Larry, before the break, you were talking about comparing some of the elements with what they've discovered on Skinwalker Ranch. Did you have any more to follow up with that?
Well, I haven't been able to connect with anybody, either producers or anybody else connected with the show. I tried. Of course, I'm sure they get 10,000 emails a day from people that say they know something or have something or whatever. There's so much BS out there, excuse my French, that, you know, they're leery. Everybody's leery. I'm very leery of UFO people myself anymore because of what has happened to us over the years. You know, like I said, we had a lot of weird stuff happen. We had an investigator come to Bob's house, and he was being all kind of a hard case, like he was super duper up in some kind of NSA or whatever, and that Bob shouldn't be talking about this, that, and the other about this object, and that he should let the government have the object. And that didn't fly very far, as Bob pulled a 38 out and showed the man at the door. But you know,
okay.
And he never come back either. And we had another gal that actually stole the piece and bragged about it. Supposed to be an old UFO investigator, and that was down at Eureka Springs. I got a picture of her, and I got all the information from, they were talking about it online, about her. She stole this piece, broke it off of Bob's object at the Eureka Springs UFO conference, said, I'll find out what it is. And I've got the entire transcript of her talking online about stealing that piece from Bob's object.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I got all that stuff. I got emails from MUFON of stuff. MUFON wanted Bob and I to come out, or a lady that at the time who was working with MUFON wanted us to come out and do a conference lecture at their congress or conference out there in Denver, wherever, Colorado Springs, wherever they're going to have this conference. Well, once they found out John Greenwald was going to be involved in it, as far as doing a possible video, they were all for it. And, you know, they was going to send us the whole deal. Then Bob, of course, had a heart attack, and that kind of killed that, other than I could have settled on that. But they were wanting to do testing on the object, MUFON. Okay, well, that's fine. Allegedly, MUFON's a reputable organization, you know, and that's when Aldrich was involved with them, and Bigelow was just coming in trying to get a piece of the action from them too, so he wanted all the files that MUFON had. So they come along, and when we come to find out that I wasn't going to come out there, all of a sudden it just all the testing fell apart. Had a scientist out of Texas that was going to do the testing in the lab down there. The only request we made was when the testing was going on, we wanted Dr. Gibbons in the lab. Well, no, we can't do that. Well, why can't we do that? We have our own personal scientist in the museum, accredited NASA scientist, and he can't be in the lab to monitor the testing going on. And that fell through. We got all those emails of this guy. Yeah. I guess they don't. I guess they thought all these people that has tracked us around for so long thought we were a bunch of hillbillies, don't know what we were doing. You know, I'm not a hillbilly. I'm from Illinois. You know, number one. I've turned into one now.
You just live in the Missouri Ozarks because it's so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm an undercover hillbilly. I moved
Yeah.
down here in '95, but
Well, frankly, I'm surprised. I'm actually, frankly, surprised that that object has not gone missing after all this time.
well, like I said, it's going to be a pretty, probably sound like a good part of the old Cape Rouse when they come around here. And nobody can get close to me on this property where I live. There's no place to hide. It's family all around me. My niece lives right across the driveway from me. My closest neighbor is a block away. That's here permanently. There's certain vehicles that come down here that I know all the vehicles that come down here. So if a stranger shows up in the neighborhood, I guarantee you we know there's a stranger down here. And government license plates, I pretty well know what they are, and you know what they drive.
Yep.
It's usually a black vehicle or a gray vehicle, and it's usually SUVs, blacked out windows. Now that's normally what you see if it's a government vehicle doing surveillance. And I know that.
And a newer model too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a newer model, usually less than 2 years old. But I pay attention, and I'm on the road every day. Hauling cars all over the state, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, as far north as 50 or 60 miles north of Springfield. And I pay attention to what they do. If anybody was following me, I'd know it. Because I pay attention to traffic and what's going on. And then the places where we go to are so out of the way a lot of times, the government vehicles stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
It had to be a 1955 or 1985 Chevrolet pickup truck with rust in it. If they was trying to hide from me.
Right.
It's just, you don't see that kind of stuff. You don't see the Escalades and the Suburbans brand new like that. You see them, but not like that.
Yeah.
And like I said, you can't hide down there. And Benny Fogg is the same. He lives. When I was over to his place here a couple of weeks ago, he's so far out into the sticks that I got lost. I lost the sticks that he was in. I couldn't find that place to save my soul. He had to come out and meet me on the highway out on Interstate 40 to get me down to his house. So I had GPS. GPS said, I don't know where it's at.
Yeah, that's pretty bad when GPS doesn't know. So Larry,
he's out there.
Larry, what are your plans for testing in the future? Are you going to do some more of that?
Oh, there's testing going on still right now. I have a scientist that volunteered to do some major isotope testing in Michigan. He's been working on the object now for samples of the object now for, oh God, he's 6-7 months. And he's found a little bit, but the stuff that he has found correlates with what we've found. It's backing up testing that we've already done.
Okay.
And then he's found a couple newer stuff. And Rudy Olson did the last major test before this Michigan State stuff, the Sealy Corporation. That was Chase Cropsey and Benny. She got samples from me and from Benny, and she carried them down to his laboratory in North Carolina. He did testing. And when he got them all done doing his testing, this guy is a 5-star scientist. Probably the top 10, one of the top 10 in the world, material scientist. He's got credentials that climbed to the 5th floor, not the 1st. And he knows his stuff. I got an email from him, which I sent you. You having all that stuff I sent here last couple of weeks. He says, I've done the testing on it, and he says, I have no idea how it was made or where it's from. I have no idea. That was his.
That is pretty amazing.
That's what mainstream scientists said that. That's a very bright man. And you don't get mainstream scientists to say, duh, I don't know what it is. That's not in their volume, their vocabulary. Duh, it's not in their vocabulary.
Right, right, right.
Oh yeah, well, we know what this is.
Has any scientist ever said they did not want to have anything to do with it?
Oh yeah, that scientist said Los Alamos wouldn't touch it, come near it. We went up to Missouri State University a couple of times to try to get tested there before we finally stuck in the back door and got the X-ray diffraction test done in '09. And they would look at the object. I've seen a guy up there with the head of the materials department, a nuclear laboratory up there. He looked at that object and as it went past it down, he wouldn't touch it, number one. And he had that look that you see when the deer is standing in the headlights just before the car smacks him in the head.
Ooh.
That's the kind of look this guy had. You
Wow.
know, look out, here comes the car. You know, I mean, at 20, 40 years now, I've been fooled with this thing. And we know a lot. But every time we find out one thing, it ends up getting 15 more questions. That's what the kicker is. Every time we think we got an answer to something, another question comes up. You know, how was this thing made? Why was it made? Is it a signal device that's putting out a signal? Is it part of an engine fuel cell? Is it what was it for? Why have other objects and stacked tubular lights been seen all over the world? The people have seen that. And he had the live report back in '95 of Tim Edwards out in Slade, Colorado. They shot the picture of the video of a ship or light or whatever was over their house. Well, you take that picture from the video of that cigar-shaped object, and you put it in a photo program, and it comes to find out that there's a space in between those two lights, the upper and lower, just like what Bob describes. Only it was seen by a radio DJ. I can't think John was his name. I've got his name down too. But St. John, and then the videotape, all this stuff just corroborates what Bob said he saw that night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, and from all walks of people, all walks of life, all kinds of backgrounds, you know, yet the stories are the same. Now, why would a story of New Jersey, which is the cover of my book, shows two stacked lights over New Jersey, be exactly what Bob saw in Utah? Two stacked lights. Benning has pictures of 4 of them hooked together in Ohio. And that's daylight. That was in the daylight. He shot this picture on 35 millimeter film. You know, and that's amazing to me. But they're connected. You can see that these 4 lights are connected end to end. You know, and he's an experiencer. He's had tons of stuff happen around him. The way they got their piece of metal, his son saw the ship in the backyard, and they say a ship. He didn't say a light or anything. See a ship. His kids shot at it with a shotgun, and then that morning they found that piece of metal out in the driveway. And Daryl Sims did a story on that on his TV show back when he had that show going for a while. That David was one of his main cases, still is for that matter.
That's very strange.
And you know, Daryl was one of the few people who had the sample of Bob's object. Bob wanted him to have it, and I gave him a dime-sized piece of the end back in '09 when I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, I sent it to him. But it's, well, like I said, Margie, I wish I could tell you what's going on other than that. To me, this is the most amazing story that I've ever heard of, and documented material that you can test, you can see, and it does stuff right in front of you. You know, with machines that can do testing with it. You know, and I don't know anybody else that's got that kind of material except me and Benny. You know, they finally, when the Hallows stuff, they finally proved that was nothing. Of course, they knew that a long time ago, that bismuth or whatever it was. That's been debunked. And nobody else that I've heard of has pushed for what's going on as far as UFO material goes. We're yet, me and Benny are yet.
Well, with the recent change in attitude with the government and the government releasing video and actually having people testify before Congress, there's a little bit of a different change in attitude. Do you think that maybe some other scientists or labs might be more open to doing additional testing now? And if so, what types of testing haven't you done or can you think of?
The main test that we need done on this object of Bob's is isotope abundance ratio testing on certain materials that's identified in this object. One of them is strontium. If you already have an extraterrestrial reading in strontium anyway, it falls within 2 known Martian meteorites, Bob's object does. And it's with a plus minus of accuracy. So that means there's something going on there again. And then the scientist that did that testing, I can't remember what he said. He sent a graph, and it showed the reading in titanium, strontium, and one other, chromium 53, 54. Those 3 elements are either terrestrial or extraterrestrial with isotope readings. There's no ifs, ands, or what fors about it. If you test it and it comes with an extraterrestrial reading, it's extraterrestrial. It comes in with an Earth reading, it's Earth. And we know, like I say, we know the strontium. And of course, and then Benny's strontium too. His is guaranteed. His has guaranteed isotope reading, extraterrestrial origin. So I can say we got 2 metals for sure that are almost duplicates in main elements, and both from a UFO encounter in person, seen by multiple people. Bob and his lady friend saw it was in person. Benny and his family in person. The Rendlesham stuff that we had, that was an in person. Then it all has to do with lights, bright lights on the ground. All 3 of those cases. And we're thousands of miles apart. Now we're talking not 50, 60 miles away or the same area. We have England, we have Ohio, we have Utah. Now I'm sure that there is other cases that fall into that line. I just haven't found them yet, or nobody's talking about them. They're too scared to talk about them.
Oh yeah. I actually know 2 people who have some pieces of what they think was a UFO, and they will not talk to anybody else about it. They don't want anyone to know.
Well, you know, that part of it, people are scared.
Oh yeah.
I'm not that scared. To be real honest about it, you know. I have a bad problem. I got a big mouth. You know, and I'm not afraid to open it when I'm on getting shafted especially. That's one of the reasons where I'm talking about MUFON now. I'm talking about MIDS now. I'm talking about these people that have sit there and tried to stifle this object and the materials and the testing. Because we can prove everything I've said tonight, they can prove with documentation. It's not me thinking about this. It's documentation I have from them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the X-ray test, X-ray diffraction test shows that amorphous peak in 1996 and 1997 for Los Alamos and National Institute for Discovery Science. How come we were not notified about that when we got the test results back from Los Alamos and National Institute for Discovery Science? Because they either didn't know what it was or they kept it for themselves. Personally, if it was being Bigelow, I believe that they knew exactly what it was as far as being the amorphous polycrystalline structure in the metal. And Los Alamos, after they did their testing, of course that's gone now. Boy, I'm sorry I missed a crease out of that. Right after Bob's object was tested, Los Alamos had 4 more elements or samples of other materials that they wrote as new material. Right after Bob's testing.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, really?
Isn't that interesting?
It's not online anymore. I can't find it. But it was there for, you know, in 1996, you looked in the, on the developments at Los Alamos, the new materials, 3 or 4 new aluminum.
I wonder if that's in the patent records.
I don't know. But I can't find it anywhere. It used to be online, actually on the Los Alamos website.
Uh-huh.
But it's not there anymore. I've looked. And I didn't take a screenshot of that. I'm so sorry I didn't. But I was new at computers. I had no idea what I was doing with a computer. And I didn't. I've learned now, if you see something, you get a screen grab of it.
Yes, indeed. Because it can be gone the next day, yeah. Well, we just have a few more minutes left. Larry, let's talk about your book. What's the name of your book?
You can only go as far as you push, the Bob White Legacy.
And where can people get that?
That's, as far as I know, Goldie Press. To be honest about it, I don't know if it's still up for sale or not. I haven't looked in quite a while. That was written in, right after Bob died in 2010 and was published.
So it might be on Amazon. Well, I'll take a look and see if I can find it.
Probably still be on Amazon. I know you can. I see it advertised. Like I said, you can only go as far as you push, the Bob White Legacy.
Okay.
And basically, it's just my side of the deal as far as when we got started. And then Phyllis Goldie wanted me to do a book about it, so I did. The hardest thing I ever did was try to write a book. Like this, my 2 little brain cells don't operate that condition. I only got one left that's operating right. It's arguing with the other one.
Well, what are your plans for the future then?
Well, I'm gonna keep pushing this as long as I can. I've got some good people, new people around me. Got a real good producer, and she works with Chase out in LA. That she's very interested in this case. It has been from day one. She was one of the first people to really go in depth as far as on the interview when I did with Chase Fossey. I've got interest from the Army, but I'm leery of that. With that new AARO program or whatever it is, whatever the name is, I can't. It's the new government testing for UFO material.
Yeah.
And I have been in touch with the colonel, full colonel that's in charge of the operation, and he said they're waiting for funding from Congress to be able to start doing testing on it, but they have no material from me yet. And I know that there was stuff that has been hidden or classified from Bob's object, and that's the NIRS and the TTSA stuff. they had samples of Bob's object that I gave them, and I never got results. I got part of the stuff back from them. I didn't get it all. I had a piece of metal that I sent with Bob's object that was recovered in Cape Girardeau, the preacher case there.
Not the 1941 crash.
Yeah, 41 crash. That lady come up to me at the UFO conference in Eureka Springs, and she said, "Do you do testing on stuff, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, we do." She says, "Well, I was a friend to this preacher's daughter, and they gave me this metal from the crash." I said, "Yeah." She said, "I don't want anything to do with it." And I asked her what her name was. She wouldn't give me her name. Handed me a piece of metal and walked away and never seen her again. And it looked just like Benny's metal. As a matter of fact, now they still got that piece of metal. Never sent it back. They also have a piece of material from David Shoemaker's collection out in Arizona. He's the Indian shaman that was in the UFOs back in the 70s and so, a meteorite collector, and they got that piece in. I never got that back. All I got was Bob White metal back, and they took a piece off that bottom end of that piece that's about 4 times bigger than what they needed to do the test. So I'm not a real big fan of Mr. Guitar Player and his outfit.
Yeah.
And it's like I say, these are people supposed to be, and he's out there hustling money off of this TTSA, trying to play a 501c3 game, he's always asking for the donations to keep the operation alive. Well, TTSA has shown absolutely nothing in the years they've been at this, other than we need more money. That's it. Can you think of one case that they have proven or talked about since they've been in operation, Margie?
Oh boy, that needs to be investigated.
But I guarantee you, I know the answer. No.
Yeah, that's bad.
But that's the kind of scheming and scamming that's going on in this all the time.
Well,
we were a 501c3 for 4 years, but once we closed the museum, we turned our 501c3 in and never mentioned about donations again, ever. But and then these are names that's well known in the UFO community. And as far as I'm belong nothing more than a con man. That's all he is. Nothing but a con man. And he ain't a real good guitar player either. He's a better guitar player than he is.
Oh dear. All right, Larry. Well, we are out of time for this evening, but thank you so much for coming on the program and explaining exactly what this Bob White object is. So we know it's extraterrestrial, but
yes, we do.
Yeah. Thank you for hanging in there all these years and sticking with it and not giving up.
Well, I'll have some more stuff for you here. I'm hoping in the next 3 months, if things go like I hope, here after this little trip out west.
Okay.
Because, and if you got any connections with Skinwalker, people in the back door there, tell them about this object and metal is about, got material in it just like they're digging out of that mesa.
Well, we'll keep in touch and talk about that. Thank you so much, and good luck to you. This is Margie Kay with another edition of Unexplained News, and we'll see you here again next week.